So hello, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon to our friends who are watching us from far away. And welcome to this first session on certification. My name is Sonia Jimenez, and I work at the IDSA head office, and I'm going to be the moderator for this session. So as you may know, and as we've mentioned in several of the sessions during the summit, certification is one of the core pillars of the IDS. But why is certification so important, and how do we make it happen? So this is what we're going to see during this session. I'm going to show you the agenda now. Okay, there it is. So next slide, please, the agenda. Okay, so this is what we're going to see today. So first of all, my colleague Sebastian Steinbuss will give us an overview on the certification, so from the different perspectives that it comprises. Then we will continue with a closer look to the technical perspective, and our friends from ZIC, from SQS, and from nicos, we will present their test beds. Afterwards, my colleague Natalia will present the certification body and how we bring IDS to life. And at the end, hopefully if we have time, then we will have some questions and answer sessions. So I invite you to use the chat to write your questions. So let us start. So I welcome my colleague Sebastian Steinbuss to the stage.
Thank you, Sonia. Good morning, good afternoon, good night to everyone. Great to have you back today to our second day of the IDSA Summit. I will provide you aware of what we do with IDS certification. So we've been working on the middle pillar that we can see here for a long, long time, how to set up certification for the operational environment on the one hand side, and for the components on the other hand side as well. That means we have to take a look at components, maybe connectors, brokers, or whatever, are compliant with interoperability, so all components can work with each other, and if they are compliant with the IEC 62443 security requirements. So this is what we test during the certification. To conduct a neutral and independent and reliable certification, we have to set up a certification body. This is an endeavor that takes some time to speed up the certification process to bring IDS certification to life. We in the IDSA head office are currently setting up a certification body that really supports and enables evaluation facilities all over the world to conduct evaluations and certifications. And we started with our third pillar in the last year to really bring IDS certification to life. We are discussing a lot with current use cases, with large initiatives, how to set up, what do we have to adjust, what are the final adjustments that we do have to take to set up certification, make it usable for all of them. So, what's in there? You know that on the one hand side, on the left, you see the IDSA standard. It comprises of the reference architecture model, the certification scheme, and the certification criteria. And derived from the criteria, we have the test specification. And to execute those tests, to execute the evaluation on your side or during the evaluation later on. So, sorry, obviously we had some troubles with the typical, you're muted, Sebastian. So let's start again, start all over. So about the IDS certification. So this is what we're doing for the last few years. You can see in the middle of the pillar our IDS certification. So we do the certifications and evaluations on operational environments or participant certifications, and we are conducting certifications, evaluations for the components, maybe connectors, brokers, and whatever you have. So testing here the interoperability, compatibility between the different components, and testing security measures based on IEC 62443. To have a reliable and independent and neutral evaluation, we require a certification body. This is an endeavor that takes some time, and so we are setting up in the meanwhile a certification body inside the IDSA head office as a first step to bring really IDS certification to life. My dear colleague Natalia will provide you some details about this later on. And then we started in the last year with our Bring IDS Certification to Life work stream, where we do really discuss with different initiatives, with different projects on their needs and their requirements and their understanding of IDS certification to really do the final adjustments for IDS certification. So what does it consist of? You see on the left side, the IDS standard consists of the IDS reference architecture model, the certification scheme, and of course the criteria for all the different components and operational environments, and deriving from there the test specification. All those things will be available on our IDSG on GitHub to be available to the public. To test all those different things, to test your components, to have a runtime to start development, we are setting up the so-called test beds, consisting of different reference components that you can use to get started development. You can test on your own, in your own development environment, go to the test beds and then go to the test centers, and you have a common environment to test and to ensure interoperability with the reference architecture model. This also consists of automated test suites that help you during the development and of course during the evaluation by the neutral evaluators. And then we have the third stream about our portfolio of building blocks. So the best of breed building blocks will be part of our reference components. And we are setting up a staging, a graduation process for all those projects to start small with a sandbox project and then show that you're compatible and interoperable with IDS and getting more mature during this graduation process. We will get back into this part a little bit later on during the open source stream. So where are we in time? Today is IDSA Summit Day 2, and we are running our testbed project to really set up the testbed and the test centers as good as possible and as soon as possible. We are halfway gone, I would say, so very closely, end of June, beginning of July. We'll start with the first phase to enable the self-assessment of components. And then during autumn, we will set up the first step for the base connector concept review evaluation. Here we are really on track and we can deliver something that is useful to assure compatibility and compliance. And you can see on the third stream on the lower part that we will still conduct ongoing workshops on Bring IDS certification to life. So be part of this and bring in your requirements, foster your understanding of IDS certification to be really part of this to get your component and your environment certified as soon as it is possible. So what is in there? So we have this reference testbed and the test specifications. This consists of reference components, so a complete testbed environment, a bouncy castle where you can just test on your own and see how it works if you're still compliant. If I change this line of code, if I put in my use case, am I still compliant or not? And then you can test this together with other participants in your use case. First test on your own, then test with your partners if it still works, and then you can be sure that if you go for a certification to the evaluators, that they have the same common environment and everything that works in your own environment will work there as well. To have a first and easy step in, we are supporting a checklist approach, a lightweighted approach to step in the first phase, but then you should really use a concept approach, go to an independent evaluator and let them evaluate what you are doing to foster really trust in the ecosystems. And I'm very, very happy that our dear evaluation partners will present their current status and their work later on in this session. The objectives of the testbed, as you can see here, is setting up the testbed, setting up automated testing so that you can really improve on continuous integration and set up your components with modern software technologies and have the test specifications on top to see if you are self-compliant and to have really a quality assurance all the different evaluators. all the details, what is in there, the reference testbed setup. I will not read them out loud today, but you can take a look at what's in there. And of course, be part of our work. Join us to be part of the reference testbed setup, and of course, use it later on. It will be available as soon as possible via our GitHub repositories. Use it and contribute. It will be all open source. And having said this, I'm looking very much forward to the next sessions where the people that are experts on this explain what is really in there. So, and having said this, I will give back to Sonia, I think.
Okay, so thank you very much, Sebastian. So let's continue with the agenda. And as Sebastian already mentioned, we are very glad to have our experts here who are going to give us a closer look to the technical stream and more precisely to the test beds. So I'd like to invite Andreas Teuscher from SICK AG.
Hello, this is Andreas speaking.
Andreas. Hi, Andreas. Very nice to have you here. We can see you already. Okay. So the floor is yours.
So thank you very much. Also a warm welcome from my side. Let me start with my presentation. So I will give you a first impression with regards to the IDS testbed. Well, let us start first with the industrial test center, what we have already established at SICK AG. So maybe you know the background of SICK AG. If not, we are one of the leading sensor companies, sensor manufacturer companies. And here on the left side, you see the automation pyramid. And we are testing in this automation pyramid along all these different layers, starting with the field devices, machine control level, distributed level, as well as the production levels. So our current, I would say, test portfolio is normal penetration testing, because there are a lot of IT devices which you have already in place in normal IT operations like PC, server, and something like that. And then we have defined for our own field buses and sensor and actors an internal, let me say, standard, which is called Industrial Baseline Security Requirements. So this is a standard where all our products must comply with, so to say, a minimum security, cybersecurity hygiene. Then, of course, if you are a manufacturer, you have to come up with security manufacturer declaration, especially in Europe. You heard about the NIS directive, and in Germany, the German BSI is preparing for next year the IT security law in the version 2, which includes also the requirements for manufacturer. Then we do some automated tests. Already we have a test suite which we use Achilles, and then we have started this year with IEC 62443 conformity tests for different security levels. Our test center itself is operated under ISO 70025, which is the standard if you are operating a test facility, and the whole facility runs under ISO 27001 requirements. That is the management system. So for the IDS test beds, the requirements are a little bit, let me say, vague, because we are in the middle of, defining the requirements. But nevertheless, we have identified some hardware requirements for more commercial available PCs, alternative or virtual machine. Then we have some RAM requirements, which is 16 gigabits, and of course hard disk. Then for the software testbed, we prepare Java 11 VirtualBox, and the operating system for testbed is Ubuntu. This is the start phase for example, the first component tests. Our test bed or our test center in generally have the plan, do, check, act process in place. Here you see, for example, it is a test bed which we are normally use for laser scanners. Then we have the PLCs which control the laser scanners, and maybe in future we can connect it with a broker, with a connector and the DUBs to get the informations out of the laser scanner via the PLCs, and then transfer it to the IDS components, and we can track the communication out of the box, out of the laser scanner box. And what we are also planning to do is that we install the permanent test bed, so to say, an equivalent of all the test beds which are the reference test beds of in IDS, so that we are able to have the same version software, the same hardware requirements, so that we can produce test results which is very close linked to the testbed environment. As you can see, our focus is very, very, I would say, industrial and production focused. And if you have further question, please feel free to contact me. Here are my contact details, and the presentation will share it afterwards. Thank you very much.
Andreas, I think you mentioned something very important, is that we need really to have common specifications, common hardware and software requirements to make this happen. So yes. Thanks a lot. And our next presenter is Begoña Laibarra from SQS in Spain. So SQS have already a lot of experience running an IDS-based testbed. So
hello, Sonia. Begoña, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah. Nice
yes,
to be
Begoña,
with you here, okay?
Thank you very much for being here. And yes, welcome, bienvenida.
Okay. And thanks, Sonia. I'll share my presentation, okay? So nice to meet you here. 1 minute, okay? Try it again, okay? It seems. One minute, it seems it doesn't work properly.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me. It doesn't work?
We can see your screen now, or we don't see the presentation.
No, 1 minute. I'm going to have a look.
In the meantime, I will explain that we are very glad to count on our partners to make this certification happen. We are seeing now from the technical perspective that we're working together with ZIC, with SQS, with nicos, among others. And as you can see, certification is a very broad topic that needs to be tackled from different perspectives. So as I said, we are very, very glad that we count on members, on partners with such an expertise that helped us make this happen.
1 minute, let me check if this works, okay? I have tested before, sorry, okay? So
that's okay, it happens.
No, sorry, okay. I think it's okay.
I think yes, now we can see the presentation. Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'll try to go very fast, okay? Sorry, okay? So what I'll do is I will introduce SQS very briefly. I'll tell you why we're interested in IDSA, and then what are the activities and really what are the test beds we have already put in place and we are really implemented to I would say, to support not only the certification, but also the development of components, okay? So we are SQS, a company providing independent verification and validation services for different industrial domains. It's the case of railways, medical devices, or pharmaceutical companies. Okay, so we have developed different test labs that have helped us to provide testing services remotely. These test labs are called Quality as a Service, QAS&S, and each of these test labs has got a specific focus, I would say, scope, for instance, security testing, functional testing, okay? And they are all implemented through qualified team of engineers using qualified infrastructure, what is very, very important. They are all aligned with I would say, reference standards such as ISO 17025, as also Andreas has mentioned, 20,000, and all under ISO 9000 and 27,000 series, okay? So as it has been also introduced by Sebastian, IDSA implementation have to be robust and reliable. And to that end, the certification process is a key aspect. So SQS wants to be an evaluation facility to evaluate independently core components for IDSA. And with this goal in mind, what we have done is we have developed already different test beds and different test labs under the umbrella of QIDSA. In fact, we have developed two different infrastructures. One of them is the IDSA. I'm sure some of you already know this, what is the integration test camp. The integration test camp is operational since June 2020, okay? And it is focused on interoperability testing, which we consider is very important. And the other one is the evaluation facility. The evaluation facility will be in charge of carrying out the technical evaluation of the core components according to the certification criteria established by IDSA, and it has been under development. And for the development of the evaluation facility, we are working with SIG, nicos, and Fraunhofer. Okay, if we have a very fast look on what are the components of a lab, okay, obviously hardware and software, but there are key aspects, which is an evaluation methodology implemented by a qualified team, by qualified methods, and a qualified test infrastructure. I'll go very fast through the test beds we have already in place. Okay, the first one is the IDC. The IDC, as said before, it is operational since June 2020. It is focused on providing, on guaranteeing, it's conceived to test the technical interoperability of components with an IDS real infrastructure. So what we are offering, we are in place already, is a remotely accessible IDS infrastructure, okay, that allow components to test the interoperability with a production-like scenario. So far, what we really have right now are our infrastructure is composed of several connectors implementing and supporting IDSCP and HTTPS communication protocol. It's also components of a couple of brokers and a couple of dApps, which is a minimum viable infrastructure. As soon as these components are developed by third parties, we are doing is validating and integrating them in an ecosystem that is accessible remotely. We have also developed what is a complete test plan. Our test plan, as you can see there, is composed of interoperability test cases. The current test plan is composed of 49 interoperability test cases that cover connector-to-connector interoperability, connector to dApps, connector to broker interoperability, and backwards compatibility. And this service is offered open to the community, okay, once a month during 1 week. So participants are given a slot of 2 hours where they can test the interoperability of their working component with a real IDS infrastructure. In this 2-hour slot, I think it is sufficient time to configure the connection and also to execute in a guided manner all the test cases. So we have already organized 8 events so far. In fact, next event takes place next week. If you want to participate, please don't hesitate to go to that link and complete the template which is available there. And most of the participants here, I think it's quite interesting to mention, are companies who are starting to develop or are developing already components, who want to really detect errors early in their development process, interoperability errors, and in many, many cases, participants who want to, I would say, solve or clarify misunderstandings in the specifications or things which are not clear enough. Lately, in the last event, we also had participants who had never had a chance to contact IDS infrastructure, and it was a good starting point for them to understand the opportunities of this infrastructure. So this is, as I said, operational. We have plans for this IDC, okay? We will continue providing the IDC as it is now, but it will be renamed. It will be called IDC Level 1. And now we are working on developing what we call IDC Level 2. If IDC Level 1 was focused on technical interoperability, support and support for development and support for certification of working components. Level 2 is conceived to functional interoperability, to provide end-to-end testing and support for, I would say, deployment and implementation. In this case, we'll not only deploy an infrastructure as it is done now, but also a data space, okay? And we plan to have it, the first pilot ready for September 2020. And as also said before, we are working with SIG, nicos and Fraunhofer in the development of an evaluation facility. I think there's one aspect which is very, very important. In IDS, there will be several evaluation facilities, I hope, worldwide, okay? So one key aspect for IDSA is to guarantee that all of us work, I would say, with high quality standards, but in a comparable manner. There are many ways to achieve that, but one means to achieve this if we all work with, I would say, reference and validated test infrastructures and using reference and, I would say, common test methods and test process. And that's where we are working with SIG and with nicos. We are creating an open reference testbed. This open reference testbed will be used by us, but at the same time, they will be offered to the development community in a remote manner and also ready to be downloaded. We are working on creating a reference set of test cases, I would say, to cover 100% of the certification criteria at this stage for broker, connector, concept review, okay? And we are also providing a set of tools, which are the questionnaire and the automated test suite that will be offered to the community to do a self-assessment, like a checklist approach, as Sebastian has mentioned. And obviously the testbed will have to evolve, and also the test cases will have to evolve. So we are creating a change management process to guarantee a proper release management. So as soon as these three elements are ready, because we are working hard on that, okay, I think we'll start, I would say, evaluating components and issuing evaluation reports. I will not go in this slide because I think Sebastian has explained quite well what is the scope of the certification. So I think if you have questions, please ask, okay? But I think it's good to make in my point of view, okay, what we are creating here. We are not only creating, I would say, testbeds to certify components, but we are creating testbed and tools to support developers since the very beginning in the development lifecycle. I think with the testbed we are creating, if you are developing a component or starting to develop a component and want to know what's going on in IDSA, you can really link to the ITC, and then you can do some kind of interoperability testing. Once you have a version ready for deployment, very soon you'll be able to download the testbed and you will do a self-assessment. If you want to go for a certification, you go to the evaluation facility. And once you have your IDS certified component, hopefully, okay, we will manage to offer a testbed where you can test the interoperability of your component within a data space.
Begoña, sorry to interrupt this 1 minute to continue the next presentation. So,
okay, yes, it's all for me. So we are not, we are not only working on certifying, but also on making it faster the development of components. So for me, that's all from my side. Okay. Okay. So sorry.
No problem. Thank you so much, Begoña. I think you gave a very good overview on the specific topics that we're working on right now from the technical stream to make certification happen. So thank you so much for this overview. It's of course great that SQS with their ITC have such an experience now doing those tests, those interoperability tests, and that we can count on that experience to build the IDS reference testbed. So thanks again, Begoña.
Sonia. Okay, see you.
And now I'd like to invite our friends from nicos, so Jörg Langkau. You can share yours. Okay, you come. Okay. Now we can see you. Welcome, Jörg.
Yes. Hello.
Okay. So nicos is also. Hi. Okay, I see you're ready to share. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sonia. Okay, my name is Jörg Langkau, employee from nicos AG and managing director of nicos Research and Development here in Münster in Germany. We're a small, medium enterprise, and as you can see it here, we are the expert in secure global data communications for our customers, hopefully. But now I want to speak a little bit about the two topics: machine readable catalog and nicos testbed IDS. But at the beginning, nicos is now member of IDSA for, let's say, around about 5 years. I'm working in the architecture group, and I'm also a member of the technical steering committee. On the other hand, and I think it's also important, Nicos is a member of, one member of Gaia X, and I've done some work in the community group of self-description, something like information model. And I've done some work in the Gaia X Federation services in the beginning of the year, but we can see. So let's say you don't have to read all these things here. We make a handout, I think, and it's only for myself, and I don't want to pick out all the cherries, but the greatest ones. The first thing I try to explain is what we've done so far for the testbed project. Sebastian Steinbuss told us, and you see some testbeds now. For also, we focused on the let's say the machine readable portion of the criteria catalog to certify those components. So the story starts, and the technical name is, as you see it on the left side, it's the IDS 3C CO component. We start to work on the criteria, all down written in Excel, and we try to translate it or transform it into a machine readable way. And so we try to turtle. It's a very bad word, this word turtle. Don't bother it. It's only the machine readable part, the semantic part of describing these criteria. Maybe more of you will understand it if you ever heard the word JSON LD. This LD is the linked data stuff. So it's machine readable. At the end, you can read it in JSON LD if you like so, or in turtle. And starting from this criteria, we brought up in the last weeks, we brought up the test specification and the test case specifications and the test design specifications. I think we need 1 or 2 other days to make them up and running so that they can fill up with content and let's say waiting for human input. That's the next step. We are all working on, I don't want to bother you, but that is a story from the machine room. We are working on GitHub repositories for this. And one of the last things come up is the questionnaire of checklist approach. It's also machine readable now. And at the end, you must imagine that this catalog is now a fully fledged graph. It's linked data, okay? So we can validate this data. It's very, very important. You see the shekel, maybe some of you understand what shekel is. It's schema and structure validation. And we can validate this catalog because you have to imagine that we have hundreds of nodes and thousands of triples, and there are a lot of structure possibilities to make mistakes regarding the structure of the catalog. The outcome might be a markdown HTML, so human readable catalog, and also the outcome might also be a JSON artifact or JSON LD artifact, or maybe we can transform it to Office documents once again back. One of my favorites of this idea, make this catalog machine readable, is to that we are in touch to make this catalog more, let's say, more. We can fletch it with other languages. Okay, the normal default language, the first language is English, as you see here on the right side top. But we are able to lift it to any other language. I don't know if we want to do it in future, but we are ready to do. One of the other very important facts of the machine readable portion of the criteria catalog is that it's very strongly aligned to the IDS information model. Okay, I think most of us here know that we have an information model that describes all those thingy stuffs, components, and so on and so forth, participants, regarding to the fact that it's reside into inside the ecosystem of IDS. So this catalog is very strongly aligned, but up to date it is standalone with the model of IDS 3C. Future task may be that we can make some very fine-grained rules to validate to given responses in a living text. Maybe it's from my side, it's the enabler of automatic test setting too. And at the end of the day, if the applicant comes out of the lab, we need some audit logs. And I think it's a good idea to make them also machine readable. And we have some ideas to get in touch with a good way to make it by, let's say, verifiable credentials or whatever. And maybe another thingy might be the workflow defined complex test, but get in touch with me if you're interested in. The second part of my story here now, and I have to look. Okay. Nicos wants to start Testbed also. And the beginning of this story was, tada, hey, have a look at this here. I think it's now over 3 years ago, some of the elders of us remember maybe the fact that we start an ecosystem on the Hannover Fair 2018, and we show, let's see, a little IDS ecosystem, and Wally was one of the connectors, and there was another connector controlling Wally, and there was a DAPS also inside, and that's the story where we come from. So we tried to bring up a testbed here in Münster also, but there's a huge difference between the testbed from, let's say, from SQS or SIG AG, because we don't want to be a testing facility to make normative testing protocols. We only want to make informative test protocols. And like Begoña told us some minutes ago, we are more interested in, let's say, to be a partner for development teams or whatever. So they come to us, they can learn how to fix problems, they can see what the operational tests are, and they get the same testing results, hopefully the same testing results as they get it, let's say, by SIG AG, but we are not so far interested in all those hard security 62443, whatever thingies, and we only want to make some operational tests. So as you can see, we bring up also DAPS. We've done our DAPS for now 3 years and make own clearinghouse, only inbox. We've done some things around Paris and so on and so forth, all those names I know. And our applicant is the Gaia box. The Gaia box is the nicos connector we tried to bring up. And that was the reason why I'm so interested in test bending, because we want to test our Gaia box, okay? So nicos testbed has one portion, the IDS testbed, but there are other targets. Now we are working on a testbed for linked data platform. In its core, the Gaia box is a linked data platform for those who are interested in W3C, LDP, and you find where it's going on. And we also start a test bed for the ecosystem Gaia X, but so far we are not able to understand what, let's say, a living service instance is. So in the future, we try to get our testbed up and running also for remote way, so that maybe there's a client who gets a VPN connection to us and can test his connector remote. But I think for developers, it's more interesting to come in here to us and work with the problems they have to develop their own connector. That's it.
Thank you so much, Jörg. And that was a very good overview. So started with a top-level overview on what's needed for certification from the technical side, and now there was a deep dive into the specific tasks that we are working on. And I'd like to thank you for your excellent job done for the criteria catalog. And I'd like to thank again Andreas and Jörg for these presentations, and also for the work done to make this happen. And also, of course, our friends and colleagues from Fraunhofer, who are also part of this project. So let us continue with the agenda. We will now continue with another perspective from this certification. So this was a deep dive into the technical perspective. Now my colleague Natalia will present the certification body and how we bring IDS certification to life. So welcome, Natalia.
Thank you, Sonia, for this introduction. And also thank you to the other speakers that explained the topic of the certification to this point. So, yeah, so we have heard now how we are going to test IDS components and how we are going to set up those test beds and test specifications to make this possible. But there are also two other topics that are very important to ensure a trustworthy and also sustainable IDS certification process. And these topics are the certification body and the workshops on bringing IDS certification to life, what we heard about already from Sebastian and from Sonia before. So the certification body goes hand in hand with the evaluation facilities, because the evaluation facilities, they are testing the IDS components and also operational environment. And the certification body task is to approve those evaluation facilities, to test if the evaluation facilities are testing according to the IDS certification scheme. And another task of the certification body is to monitor these testings on a regular basis to keep the quality as high as possible. And last but not least, but the last task of the certification body is to notify the certificate authority that an organization or a component is allowed to get the digital certificate, which indicates that the component or the organization is in the end IDS compliant. We are going to set up this first certification body in the IDSA head office. And on the first line of the timeline that you can see here, we have indicated what are the main milestones to set this up in this IDSA head office. So we have, for example, set up the administrative processes that are necessary to run the certification body. For example, we have some lists for the evaluation facilities that we will publish on the website. And we are currently also in the process of finalization of a contract between the certification body and the evaluation facilities. As a next step, in the mid of summer, we will publish also a tender to hire external experts that will support us in the running the certification body in the IDSA head office. And in the beginning of September, we will start the first approvals of the evaluation facilities, so that we will have between October and beginning of November the first evaluation facilities approved. Okay, and the second stream and the second work I mentioned and we mentioned to ensure the sustainable IDS certification process is the Bring IDS Certification to Life workshop series. So in this workshops, we are bringing together on the one hand the technical expert of the IDS certification, and on the other side, we are bringing together the current initiatives that are in the process of setting up data spaces and are very close to adopt IDS certification schemes. And we are bringing them together to gather some insights on spots that we can still improve with our IDS certification scheme, and in the end to refine the offering of the IDS certification. And we are doing this by having some workshops and analyze the current implementation patterns that the initiatives are having. The initiatives are, for example, Catena X or Data Space Mobility or iShare, and then we are comparing it to what we have already there as an IDS certification process. So the current status that we had already two different kinds of workshops. In the first workshop, we collected insights on topics that are relevant and that have to be tackled, and then we had a workshop also on analyzing these implementation patterns of the initiatives. And in the next stage that we are planning for these workshops is to plan this sub-work streams with the open topics that have to be tackled. For example, we will align with Gaia X. The other topic is how to certify cloud profiles. And the third topic that we are foreseeing is to analyze those certification patterns from the other initiatives. And We will inform you as soon as we have a next date for a next workshop, so that you can also participate and also share your knowledge and your experience with us, so that we can refine the certification process at best. Now I would welcome my dear colleagues Sebastian Steinbuss and Sonia Jimenez for the Q&A session.
Okay, thank you, Natalia, for this presentation. We have only 1 minute for Q&A, but I'd like to ask Andreas, Teuscher, Begoña, and Jörg to maybe turn on the cameras. I currently don't see any questions on the chat, but I'd like to ask one question to all of you. So what do you think that's next now? So what has to happen to bring this to the market, to make this IDS certification happen? So if any one of you would like to answer.
Yeah, well, maybe I can start while the others are still joining. So what do we have to do to make this really happen? I think first of all is getting things done. I mean, for everyone who is inside IDSA and inside the project, we all know there's a lot of work ahead, but we're really on a good track to bring things down to a first level, to a first stage where we can get things started, and then invite even more people and to continue on this, because we all know that this is the first step and not the thing that we are really, really looking for. We have to continue our work to get the assessments for the trusted connector, for the higher security profiles. This is really, really important to continue with that. But this is on the horizon. What we do have to do now is really make those things happen. And that's why I love to see that we are all joining forces now and working together to bring really this first step on the stage. That's my perspective on this. But maybe one of you, would you love to add something?
No, I fully agree with you, Sebastian. I think what we have to is what we have, I think, all agree on. We have to work on a reference testbed, reference test specification well known by all of us. So we are able of providing, I would say, comparable results. But I think there's two aspects which are important. If we are managed to provide comparable results, that's key to guarantee the quality of what we are doing, okay? So, and then that's, I think, for me, the first step. Okay, we are already working on a, I would say, a minimum viable infrastructure. We are working on a criteria for, I would say, concept review. So we have to push for that. As soon as we have these 3 pillars, I think we are ready for the evaluation. Okay.
Thank you, Begoña.
Yes, I agree with that. We need to have a level playing field. So we have, a good understanding. If we are talking about the connector, then we should make sure that we have one connector reference, let me say a reference installation in place, which is absolute synchronized in all the test beds and all the test centers. So that from outside a perspective, for example, for a customer perspective from the IDS or participant, they knew if they do some tests against what, which version and something like that.
Thank you, Andreas.
Yes, and I think if we have all, not only these 3 here, we all have a common understanding of what a test bed is. We are able to get it up and running, let's say in Hub, Finland or whatever, or up and running from by our new partners or whatever. But we have to have a common understanding what a test bed is. Let's say it's, from my perspective, it's a little thing like a little ecosystem, and it does not have to have the flavor in this way or in this way. We have to have one idea of a living ecosystem, one. And there is not, we are not able to differentiate between this stubs and this stubs, or this Paris and this Paris. We have to have one view on one ecosystem. This is very, very important in this phase.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much, Jörg. Okay, so let us finalize this session. In case there are more questions, we can go to the breakout room Saturn. In case any topics are still open or you would like to talk directly with the presenters. Thank you all again for these very insightful presentations and for your collaboration.